Welcome aboard, friends. I'm glad you're here for day 2 of Bible Adventures. I'm Sherry, and I will be your Bible Adventure leader today. We're riding the rails this week at Rocky Railway VBS, but today's story will take us on a different mode of transportation. In today's Bible story, it's found in the book of Acts, which is in the New Testament. Yesterday we heard that God asked Ananias to go and visit Saul. And remember, Saul wasn't very kind to Jesus' friends. And Ananias was afraid of meeting Saul. But knowing Jesus helped Ananias obey, even though it was hard, because Jesus' power helps us do hard things.
Trust Jesus.
Well, God changed Saul's heart, and Saul went from being Jesus' enemy to being Jesus' friend. And people saw how much Saul had changed. They started calling him Paul instead. Well, after Paul became a friend of Jesus, he started telling everyone about Jesus' love. But there were still a lot of people who didn't like what Paul said. The Bible tells us that the people put Paul in jail and sent him to see the king for a trial. But that meant that Paul had to go on a ship to sail to where the king lived. So pretend that you are with Paul and the other sailors on the ship. Because at first, on the trip, there were nice and gentle waves hitting the ship. They were all enjoying the ride. But then a huge storm came up, and the storm pushed their ship way out into the ocean and away from where they needed it to go. And it lasted for 14 long and scary and hopeless days. So for 14 days, they couldn't see the sun or the moon, and all they could see were clouds and wind and rain. So the days went on. Day 1, no sun. Days 2, 3, 4. The sailors were so afraid they thought the ship was going to sink, and they were all going to end up at the bottom of the ocean. Days 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, still nothing but clouds and rain. So they started to throw everything they could out of the ship. Try to lighten the load a bit. Days 11, 12, 13, 14, they still couldn't see anything but the terrible storm. The sailors were so busy trying to keep the ship from sinking that nobody ate anything either that whole time. They lost all hope. They didn't think they'd ever be safe again. But then an angel came to Paul and told him that Jesus would protect them. Jesus' power gave Paul hope, and Paul trusted Jesus. Paul shared that hope with the other sailors on the ship. He told them that Jesus sent an angel who promised him that everybody would be okay. The ship might sink, but everyone would make it to shore. Well, Paul told the sailors that they should eat something so they'd have the strength that they needed. Paul thanked Jesus for some bread and ate it. And then he gave some to the other men, and they all ate some and felt much better because Jesus' power gave them hope.
Trust Jesus.
The next morning, they saw land. And the ship couldn't get there. It wasn't in any shape to get there, so the sailors had to swim to shore. So we can all pretend to swim to the shore. And when they made it to the shore, they counted out to make sure everybody was there. Good. They all made it. All the sailors on the ship made it safely, just like Jesus had promised. Well, being in that ship must have been scary for the sailors. But Paul knew someone who's more powerful than any storm, and that's Jesus. Jesus' power gave them hope.
Trust Jesus.
Sometimes scary and sad things happen to us too. Tell somebody in the room with you about something scary or sad that has happened to you, and ask them to share a sad or scary thing that's happened to them. When we feel scared or sad, it's a bit like being in a dark tunnel. It's hard to see anything good that could be coming our way. But Jesus helps us see that we won't always be in the dark. He shows us light coming at the end of the tunnel, and that is hope. Because Jesus' power gives us hope.
Trust Jesus.
Let's say a prayer. Jesus, thank you for being with us all the time. Help us to remember that our hope is in you during all the hard times. And all God's people said,
Amen.